Welcome to the House of Truth. Last last time I talked about the biblical calendar, and this to prepare for the for the the fall holidays on the biblical calendar. And today we're going to start by looking at this year we're looking at the prophetic aspects of these holidays, and we're going to start with the first one, Yom Teruah, and how we need to be listening for the trumpet. So, in the first place to start, of course, a little explanation of what Yom Teruah is. Leviticus 23, 24 through 25. Speaking to the children of Israel, saying, in the seventh month, on the first day of the month, you shall have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation. You shall do no work therein. You shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. Guys, I want you to notice for a few things. It's a Sabbath. You're not to do your serviles, which is King James, for your regular work, your ordinary work you would do that you would normally do on a non-Sabbath day, including pursuing your own pleasure, and it's a memorial, and it's a holy convocation. You're to meet together, which me and my congregation did. So that's what I want you to notice about it. First of all, a little explanation, and notice it's in the seventh month on the first day of this month. So this is not talking about September on the Gregorian calendar. Comes from the Roman calendar, and literally means seventh month. First, so it's not until the first day of September. No, it's of the seventh month on the biblical calendar, which I discussed at length last time. Which in this year, the first day of the seventh month happens to fall in September, but it's not on the first day of September. So, but what do you do during this? You have a memorial blowing of trumpets. Now, this word translated trumpets is literally teruah. And so it's literally Yom to Hebrew. The correct Hebrew would be Yom, day, teruah. And teruah doesn't actually mean blowing of trumpets. It literally means alarming. However, one way to sound the alarm is with the trumpets. So if you don't have a shofar or yuval or hatzorah or some other trump or any kind of horn instrument, that actually would be fine. You can also just shout. Like people do in their alarm, they shout. So if you were looking last year, I showed that often trumpets and shouting are used together, sometimes interchangeably. So it's but trumpets is a fine translation. And, they just said the memorial of alarming. It may not be quite clear to people. But why trumpets? Well, trumpets signify some things, and understanding what they signify is key to understanding what this holiday that gets very few this high Sabbath, it gets really very little text to it. How important it is and what it really signifies. In the first place we need to look at is Numbers chapter 10, verses 1 through 4, because this is key. You understand this right, and how it applies, and we'll see how it applies prophetically. It'll help you get some other things straight, which you'll see. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, make you 2 trumpets of silver, of a whole piece you shall make them. You shall use them for the calling of the assembly and for the journey of the camps. And when they shall blow with them, all the assembly shall send themselves to you at the door of the tabernacle congregation. And if they blow but one trumpet, then the princes, which are the heads of the thousands of Israel, shall gather themselves unto you. Now, notice that this is particular. The word translated trumpet here is hatzorah. It means a metal trumpet, a straight one, particularly. Like you may have seen one of them movies where they announce the king's arrival, and they blow trumpets, have little banners on them, or whatever. That's what we're talking about. They're like that. And so it's not a shofar in this case. It's silver trumpets, but again, the principles here are going to be the same. When you hear the sound of the trumpet, But I want you to notice there's two sounds here. There's two soundings here. One when you blow both of them, and one when you blow only one. And because now two would be louder than one, but people are not close enough, that may not cover it. So to make sure people understood is you blew one trumpet. We blew them one time. You blew it one time, and then those who went ahead of the rest would gather themselves. But when the second trump sounded, the last trump, then everyone assembled, and the rest assembled. So you had first you had those who went in front before, and then everyone. So that's the last trump means everyone show up. The second trump, there's only two, so the second one's gonna be the last. Okay, now Ezekiel 33, 1-5 tells the other significance of this trumpet with respect to this prophetic picture we're looking at today. And again, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, speak to the children of your people and say to them, when I bring the sword upon the land, if the people of the land take a man of their coast and send them for their watchmen, if when he sees the sword come upon the land, he blows the trumpet and warns the people. Then whosoever hears the sound of the trumpet and takes not warning, if the sword come and take him away, his blood shall be on his own head. He heard the sound of the trumpet and took not warning, his blood shall be upon him, but he that takes warning shall deliver his soul. Okay, so I want you to notice this here today. So here's the important key thing here. It's the responsibility of the watchman to blow the alarm, to sound the alarm with the trumpet, to make the teruah, the sound the trumpet, the alarm. If what? To warn people of impending destruction. I mean, the sword doesn't mean just there's one sword. There's one sword. It's a picture. It's used. It's a metaphor for war, for a bunch of people, for an invasion, but just the idea of destruction coming upon the land, overwhelming destruction. And his job is to sound the alarm. But notice, it's the job of the people. It's the job of each individual to be listening for the trumpet and to take action when they hear it. If he's done his job, it's your job to listen. So we need to be listening for the trumpet, which is the subject of the day's lesson. Now we're gonna look at this. Now we got this context. We're gonna look at a familiar passage about the trumpet, about the sounding of the trumpet that applies to every believer. 1 Corinthians 15, 20-23. But now Christ is risen from the dead and become the first fruits of them that slept. For since man came by death, by man also came the resurrection of the dead. For as all in Adam dies, even so in Christ all are made alive. But every man of his own order, Christ the first fruits, afterwards they that are Christ that is coming. Okay, so Messiah has went before us as the first fruits arose from the dead, which is what Bikurim, first fruits, is all about. That's what its prophetic picture is. Okay, but notice he's having a coming. He didn't leave, and he didn't leave, and we're just going to go be in heaven with him, and that's it. We stay there. No, he's coming back to this world, to this planet, back to planet Earth. Okay. So we are also going to be resurrected. But when? Well, how's that work? And we're going to see this right here. Shaul, the Apostle Paul, continues here in 1 Corinthians 15, 51-55. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruption must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. So when this corruptible shall put on incorruption, and this mortal shall put on immortality. Then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your sting? O grave, where is your victory? So, I want you to notice. I want you to notice we're not all going to sleep in the context that sleep's a metaphor for being dead. We're not all going to die. We all will be changed, be given new bodies in the context of this passage. And notice how quickly it is. This twinkling of an eye. Literally, in Greek, it's chronosotomos, an atom of time. The smallest piece of time that's imaginable. But when does it? So it happens very quickly. But when does it happen? At the last trump. And that brings the question, well, if there's a last trump, there's got to be at least a first trump. When's that? And we should look at that in a moment. So, at the last trump, we're going to be changed. And that will complete that resurrection cycle, which another lesson will explain what I mean by a resurrection cycle. Okay, now let's look at 1 Thessalonians 4:14 through 18 is going to tell us what the first trump is, if that's the last one. For if we believe that Christ died and rose again, even so then which are asleep in Christ, in Jesus, Christ will God bring with him. For this we say unto you, by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive remain, the coming of the Lord shall not come before them which are asleep. For the Lord himself shall ascend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, with a trump of God. And the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then which we are alive remain together shall be caught up in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. So shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore comfort one another with these words. Now, there's some important things that we need to notice in this. And what? Now I want you to notice, we will not. Those who are dead will hear a trumpet first, and they will go and they will rise first. That's the first trump. At the second trump, then those of us who are still alive will go up. That's the last trump it's referring to. It's not down to the last trump of Revelation, which, well, if you read Revelation chapter 1, Yeshua didn't even have it yet. The Father gave it to him. And he dictated it to John, who wrote it down. Joel didn't have that revelation. He was given abundant revelation, but wasn't given every revelation. No, he's referring back to what the Torah says. The second trump is when all the assembly comes together. The first trump, those who went before, those who've already died. The second trumpet, the last trump, when the rest of the assembly, the remaining part of the assembly comes together. So, and I want you to notice where we meet them. This is super important. Where we meet him, we're caught together. We're caught up. Now, this word here, caught up, is also super important. That word caught up, that word caught up there, the Greek words arpazo. So people put an H there, but there's no Greek in H. They say arpazo, but it's arpizo. And arpizo it's this Greek word to translate into the Latin Vulgate, which just means common Latin, the common Latin-based language spoken by Latin speakers back in the day. Rapturo, which we get the word rapture. It'd be a perfectly legitimate translation to say that those which remain shall be raptured together with him in the clouds. The word rapture, the word it's translated from, which we get the word rapture from, is literally in the text. It's there in plain Greek. So anyway, pay no attention to it. Anyone who tells you there is no rapture in the Bible are ignorant of the word, are ignorant of the actual words of the Bible. They perhaps do not know this. They do not read Greek, but it is there in plain Greek. And when this rapture occurs, we're in the clouds. Well, said, well, we can be on a mountain above the clouds, like my great grandfather fought in the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain. And he always passed. They always told us it was the battle above the clouds, because it was in the Smoky Mountains and the fog and whatever was below them. Look, so that they were above it, but up the top of their fight, and there was no fog, so they were in the clouds. Okay, but is that what it's about? No, this is the other super important thing to notice. In the air, we're to meet the Lord in the air, and we're going to be with the Lord from then on. The Lord being Yeshua, Jesus, or however you pronounce his name in your language. So, Iesus in Greek. So there we go, and cover one of these words. Okay, so we're not meeting him on the earth. It's super important to know. And the word rapture is literally in the text, just not the word that rapture, the Latin word rapture means is literally in the text. Even just legitimate to translate this, they should be raptured together. They should be raptured together. Because what raptured means, just caught up, snatched away. Okay, now we're going to say, well, when does this occur? Well, there's all kinds of arguments, disagreements about this. But does the Bible just plain out flatly tell us is the question? And the answer is yes. Not just the Bible, Yeshua himself. You have one of them red letter Bibles, in the red letters, okay? And let's just look at what Yeshua says. Luke 21, 32 through 36. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. And take heed to yourselves, lest any time your hearts be overcharged with suffering and drunkenness and cares of this life, until that day come upon you unawares. For a snare shall come upon all of them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch you therefore, and pray always that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. All right, well, this generation, he didn't want to talk about the ones that were listening to him when he was talking on the earth. He meant he meant everything we're going to look at is all going to occur in one generation's time, okay, from beginning to end. When you'll see what I'm talking about a little later. The things we're watching for are going to all occur in one generation. And because of that, we're to avoid what? Suffering's old King James word. When he's like banqueting, just eating to live instead of living to eat instead of eating to live. Being all caught up in always throwing dinners and food networking and all that kind of stuff. Not, where you're obsessed with it, and that's what you spend all your time on. Your time outside of work and whatever you're cooking and stuff. Drunkenness, of course. We're not to get drunk at all, but again, because it dulls your senses, dulls your judgment. We're to stay sober, but the cares of this life, don't get so busy in just day-to-day life, and the day comes. And if you do those things, this day will come upon you unawares. And the cares of this life will also be over preparation for the future. You can only do so much preparation realistically. Yeah, it's wise. It's wise having your house enough food to last a few months, maybe, in case of something. But no one can store up 7 years worth of water. And when the judgment of God comes, those who do all this prepping, it's going to do them no good. It's going to come upon all that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Even if you had some giant underwater reservoir, he'll drain it. Okay. Doesn't an earthquake and drain it? or or just kill you somehow. But the fact is, there's no amount of preparation you can do that God's not going to be able to undo. This is going to come upon everyone that dwells on the whole earth. There's going to be nowhere to run, no place to hide out. It's coming on the whole face of the earth. So therefore, we're told to watch and pray that what? Maybe worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass. It doesn't say escape. It doesn't say escape half of them. It doesn't say escape most of them, or a few of them at the end. It's all of them. And all of what? That scenario comes upon all the face of the earth is the tribulation, plainly in the context of this passage. And this passage has parallel passages. We're going to look at parts of. We're going to look at texts from them too. Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13 are all parallel passages that start with Yeshua answering a question about the disciples. Ask him. He tells them that the temple is going to be destroyed. Not even a stone laying on each other. And they ask him when these things are going to be, and when's the end of the world going to be, and the end of the age, literally, going to be. And this is his answer to these three. And it's plain the tribulation. Those who are worthy are going to escape all these things. How? By not being on the earth. If it's going to be on the face of the whole earth, if you're not on the earth, it's not going to happen to you. Why? Because you're up in the air. You're meeting him in the air. So there's no doubt, without a doubt. And if you, and just in case you weren't sure, the way you escape is by meeting him in the air. He gives you that last little saying there, to stand before the Son of Man. Well, we're not going to stand before him on the earth and escape all these things after it's over. No, you're going to stand before him in the air where you meet him before the things begin, before the tribulation begins. So long as the word tribulation in the Bible, it could be just actually translated as rapture. I'm sorry, the word rapture is in the Bible, going to just easily be translated. It's also very plain to the words of Yeshua. It's before the tribulation. When we'll look at the tribulation and some of those things in later lessons this month, as we're in this fall holiday season. So that's very important for you to know. So do not let anyone confuse you or doubt you about that. Because remember that phrase, in the air. When they show you passages where they use to try to show that it happens some other way, it's always on the earth somewhere, not in the air. If you ask yourself, is this on the earth or in the air? Then I'll clarify it for you. Nope, it's not the rapture, the catching away. It is some other event because it's on the earth, not in the air. Okay. And again, this is foreshadowed in Revelations chapter in the book of the Revelation, Yeshua, that the Father gave to Yeshua, who dictates to John. And we're going to start here in Revelation 1:9-11 to see this. I, John, who am also your brother and companion in tribulation, in the kingdom of the patience of Jesus Christ, was in the isle called Patmos for the word of God, for the testimony of Jesus Christ. I was in the spirit of the Lord's day and heard him behind me a great voice as of a trumpet, saying, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. What you see, write in a book, send to the 7 churches that are in Asia, unto Ephesus, to Smyrna, Pergamos, and to Thyatira, and unto Sardis, unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea. Okay, so notice. First, I want to clarify something here. On the Lord's Day does not mean Sunday. It's true, Sunday was called the Lord's Day on some ancient calendars, but the oldest one, they didn't start till 150 AD. A man named Ignatius started labeling Sunday the Lord's Day. That was 55 years after John had this revelation. The Lord, over and over again, the Sabbath is called, the Lord says the Sabbath is mine, it's my day. If it's his day, it's the Lord's day. So just a little bonus there, clarification. So, and I want you to notice the association here of tribulation, okay? Give you sort of a foreshadowing of what the rest of the book's about here. And he heard what? The voice of a trumpet. That trumpet is Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach. And what? And this last part brings up a very important thing to understand if you're reading the book of Revelation. Most of it, the first 3 chapters, are concerning what John sees in these letters to these churches. So it's about the churches. The last 3 are about the reign of Messiah, or about the reign of Messiah overall, including the last 2 are focused on the world to come, which we will discuss in greater detail in a future lesson this year. Now, in between those is the tribulation, which brings us to Revelations 4:1-2. After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven, and the first voice I heard, which was as it were of a trumpet talking with me, and said, "Come up here, and I will show you things which must be hereafter." And immediately I was in the spirit, and a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. Immediately, the twinkling of an eye, just there, he was there. And wow, when he was called up by the trumpet, so we also should be listening for the trumpet. Okay, the trumpet called him up to where? Off the earth, in the air. We're actually in heaven in this case, because that's where we're going to be. We're going to be where Messiah is. When he moves one place, we go with it. Okay, he meets in the air, but we don't stay in the air. We actually go up to heaven. If you read the rest, we follow him into heaven from the air. So there we go. So Revelation itself has a prophetic picture of the rapture built right into it. So the rapture occurring when? After the churches, before the tribulation starts. I literally have written enough about this in my blog to create a thick book of 300 or 400 pages showing from Scripture that this is the case. But you don't need to read all them posts. You just need to read and believe Luke 21:36. Okay, now we've got that. Then remember, but not everyone's getting raptured. That was an important point. So important, I'm actually going to go back and look at it again. But who's leaving? Who's going to escape? Only the worthy, that you may be accounted. We're to pray that we're accounted worthy to escape those things. And how are we worthy? By watching. We're to watch. We're to be listening for the trumpet. Listening for the trumpet. So that we're and praying. Then we'll be accounted worthy to escape those things. So we're supposed to be watching. Our listening for the trumpet involves our watching. And what we're watching for? Well, we're going to go into that right now. Okay, we're going to get into this whole idea of watching. We're going to clarify some misconceptions here. Matthew 24:42-47. We're going to start with, watch therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord does come. But know this, that the good men of the house had known what watch the thief would come, he would have watched not suffice his house to be broken up. Therefore be you also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man comes. Who is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord has made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant, whom his Lord becomes find so doing. Verily I say unto you, he shall make him rule over all his goods. So, I want you to notice here. What's the first thing? We're to watch. It's a commandment. Why? We don't know the hour. It's suddenly, but we don't know when it is. We don't know when that suddenly occurs. So he compares us to, if we knew, we would just watch then, and it wouldn't get broken into. So the point of the parable is we have to be watching all the time. And remember, only the worthy are going to escape. We saw they watching, the ones always praying, but also they're what? They're doing what they're doing. They're about the Father's business. They're about Messiah's business when he comes. We're supposed to be ready all the time. We're not supposed to be out there. We're not supposed to be out. Look, a pre-trib rapture, a pre-trib rapture is the worst news ever for people trying to sell rapture survival kits. Nobody's going to buy them if you tell people that. But the worst thing of the rapture survival kit whole business, besides that, it's just built totally on deception, as I've already shown, is it's keeping people distracted. They're caught in the cares of this world, and they're not doing what the Lord's business. They're not spending their money supporting missionaries and helping each other and taking care of the poor. No, they're hoarding everything, trying to prepare for the wrath. And God can destroy their preparations in a moment, anyways. You want to prepare for the rapture, and you want to prepare for the tribulation. Prepare to not be here in the first place. By continually be doing what Messiah is wanting us to do. So when he does come and gathers those of the worthy, he finds you worthy because you're doing what I told you to do. And then you're going to rule with him. This is why it's so important. The timing is so important. So you know how to behave. You're going to watch and be about the Father's business and focused on that, and not caught in the cares of this life, and be praying. Okay, now we're going to clear up another misconception about the whole rapture and tribulation timing business and how it's going to come about. 1 Thessalonians 5:1-6. But the times and seasons, brethren, I have no need to write unto you. For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord comes as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them, as travail upon a woman with a child, and they shall not escape. But you, brethren, are not in the darkness, and that that day should overtake you as a thief. You are children of the light and the children of day. We are not of the night, nor of the darkness. Let us not sleep as others do. Let us watch and be sober. Okay, so now notice this here. The day of the Lord comes as a thief in the night. So he'll use that and said, well, we want no use worrying about it. I just might as well go. It's going to show up when it shows up. It's going to come suddenly. But notice, we're given a warning that it should not overtake, that we're not to be in darkness. It's going to come as a thief in the night upon those who are in darkness. Those who think are out there, those who think they're all good, they're all living peace and security, that everything's well, that the world, everything, they have nothing to repent of. They have no need to worry about anything. It's going to come upon them suddenly, like untimely birth pains. There's a woman I know. I know who her water broke in her 6th month. She wasn't expecting that. Her 6th month of pregnancy. She wasn't expecting that. And notice, they shall not escape. When this destruction comes upon them, they will not escape. Now, we're going to look at a moment here. What day? This is the day of the Lord, or what day of the Lord? Is this the day of his return to the earth? Or is this the day people meet him in the air? And we'll look at that in a moment here. What's it referring to here? So, because we're the children of light, we're not to sleep. We're to watch and be sober. Again, not drunk, not caught up in drunkenness. Being sober, sober-minded, paying attention to what's going on, not having our judgment impaired. Now, Shaul clarifies clarifies the rest of these points for us. In first, we continue in 1 Corinthians 5, verses 7 through 11. They that sleep in the night, and are drunk in the night. Let us who are the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and for a helmet the hope of salvation. For God has not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation by our Lord Jesus Christ, who died for us. Where we wake or sleep, we should live together with him. Wherefore, comfort yourselves together and edify one another, even also you do. Okay, so notice. So the sleep at night, but we're the day are not going to be caught unawares. And we're not, and we really have nothing to concern ourselves with. Because if we're going about this business, we're having on that breastplate of faith and love. We're having the hope of salvation, protecting our minds. Faith and love is going to protect our hearts. And the hope of salvation is going to protect our minds. So we're not deceived about these things. So we're not kind of aware. But notice this, as we saw, the wrath, this terrible trouble, this wrath, this destruction come upon all the earth. We're not appointed to that wrath. Why? We're going to be living together with him. Awake means alive in this context. Sleep means dead. So we're those who are awake at that moment when the trumpet sounds. The first trumpet followed shortly by the second trumpet, or we've died. We're going to be together with him. And again, where? In the air. So when the wrath is poured out, this as a snare that comes upon the whole earth, it isn't going to come upon us because we won't be on the earth. And for that reason, we can comfort each other and edify one another, can encourage each other to continue in faith, love, and the hope of salvation. And again, we've seen it again about watching. Well, what are we watching for? Well, we're gonna look at what we're watching for, starting here in Matthew 24, verses 4 through 8. And Jesus answered and said to them, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. So that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and a kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginnings of sorrows. All right, so what did Yeshua say we should be watching for? So that no one deceives us. First of all, he deceives us about what? About the timing of the rapture, for one thing, but also about the age we live in, and about being deceived by messiahs. There's going to be many people who say they're Messiah. There's a woman in China right now who came across her videos while I was on YouTube looking for content from Greek believers. And I don't mean people who are part of the Greek false church of Rome, the Greek leg of the false church of Rome. I'm talking about real believers. During Hanukkah, when I listen to Greek music, in Greek, and I came across this video, and it was very interesting, but something didn't feel right about it. And there was Chinese people. I went and looked it up, and I felt like this, no, there's nothing wrong with this. And I went and looked into it, and this woman in China claims to be Messiah, claims to be Christ, and she's just one of many. There's been numerous of these people in these years. Many have come into his name, and they've deceived many. She had many followers, and so this guy in India I looked at, and all these other places. And wars. There's all these wars going on. Those don't realize it. There isn't a world war going on yet. The amount of war going on the earth is almost as high as it was in World War II collectively. Not quite, but almost. We're just a spark of, and there's rumors of wars. People are worried about wars breaking out, or think there's going to be war places that never materialize. They get wrapped up in trouble about it. We're told not to be troubled. But those things have to come to pass, but that doesn't mean the end is here. That does not tell us that the end is here. Wars happen, these things happen. And yes, they'll increase as we get close to the end in frequency and intensity, but they're not the end. But that does not mean we're in the time of the end yet. And this nation again means ethnic group. Kingdom is basilisk, because it can also mean religion. And we see all these fights between what? Ethnic group over ethnic group, particularly in places like Africa and places like that. You know, even inside countries like China, you got the Uyghurs, one ethnic group, the Chinese government trying to basically wipe out the face of the earth, and them fighting, and them also, but they stir up a lot of trouble themselves. So you got ethnic group against ethnic group because they're in China, but they're not Chinese. Okay, they're in the Western regions. And of course, all these fights between religions. And there's famines. And I'm sure we all remember famines in our local lifetime, but my first I remember was in India, but most of the time people think of Africa. But there's famines, and there's no need for it. There's more than enough food in this world. There's only a shortage of one thing. It's love. Yet we have all these famines. We can get food to those people. We can't prevent the famines. That's judgment of God. But we can use it. We can use it to show those people who are suffering in famine the goodness of God, that some might be saved. Pestilences, that's a fancy old King James word for plagues, like COVID-19. Earthquakes, which are also what causes tsunamis. I mean, think about the tsunami, the one that hit Indonesia, the one that hit Japan, in various earthquakes, like the one in Haiti. Again, they're increasing. Now, there's been more devastating earthquakes in some cases, but they're kind of far and out between. But they're intense, even in places. Even I live in Oklahoma. You know, I used to say we get everything but hurricanes and earthquakes. Well, then Katrina hit and ran over and in its long course inland, ran over Oklahoma, hit by a hurricane. Couldn't believe it. And then we started getting earthquakes, sizable earthquakes in some places. Not just little tremors. I mean, real just and play. So these are all signs that we're watching for, but that doesn't mean the end is here. These are just the beginning of sorrows. You can think of it perhaps at the beginning of the end. I'll explain that in a little more detail in a moment. What I mean by that. Now, in Matthew 24, 9 through 14, he gives us some more signs and some more progression. And he's even going to tell us what we need to look for, and we know the end is now possible. Because it's not true that he can just show up anytime he left or he told his disciples the imminent return. No, we're going to see some things have to happen first. We've already looked at some, we'll look at some more. And until those things occur, you cannot have the end. In the end, meaning starts going with us being medium in the air, and the things that follow thereafter to bring an end to this age. Then they shall, and so again, Matthew 24, 9 through 14. I'm just going to read it to you now. Then they shall deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you. You shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall arise and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved. And the gospel of the kingdom shall be preached for all the world for a witness unto all nations. And then the end shall come. So I want you to notice this here. This progression. And if you ever read anything from the Voice of the Martyrs and stuff, if you remember some of the terrible things ISIS did to people, to believers. There's more martyrs in our modern times in the last 10 years. There's been any time period in history except for during the universal persecutions of the Romans. Okay, but collectively, if you count all the people globally, It's probably even worse than it was then because there was more people on the earth than there was then. We are hated of all ethnic groups. The word nations, again, doesn't mean like United States and France and Mexico or whatever. It means ethnic groups, okay? It's Greek word ethnos. Goyim is the Hebrew word. That's what I'm talking about here. We're hated by all ethnic groups, okay? And people are offended because of this. Because if they were sold on some prosperity gospel, if I may use that as one example, where God's just out there ready to open his treasures up and hand you stuff and make your life easy, and people start afflicting and killing people instead, they get offended. They don't want to follow Messiah anymore. In fact, they'll betray each other to save their own skin, like Judas did. Judas just did it for money. They may even do it for that money, but they'll save their own skin or whatever, and they'll hate one another. Yeshua again came to bring division, not peace. He's the most divisive person that ever lived. And many false prophets shall arrive and shall deceive many. And we all in America should know that's true. They're on the internet, they're on TV, and many of them have been false prophets about this very subject I'm talking about. Well, 88 reasons why Jesus is returning in 1988. 1988 came and went. No, and these kind of books have been, these dates have been continuously, as long as, well, pretty much as long as I've been aware there was a tribulation or a rapture. That's probably around before then, but I wasn't even aware these things existed. So, all kinds of false prophets. People can make mistakes, yes, but still are not making mistakes. They're false prophets. And they give false prophecies. I guess those are more false teachers I gave, but the false prophets, they give false prophecies. They say things that do not come to pass and deceive many. And we shall see if it's from the Lord God Almighty, Yahweh, it will happen. If it doesn't, it wasn't from him, and they are a false prophet. They need to repent of that. But because that they'll deceive many, and in particular, there's been many false prophets as of late about the whole mark of the beast thing. The whole mark of the beast thing, and so on and so forth, being the COVID shot and this kind of thing. And we're going to look at in a few moments why that's not possible. But they're there, and iniquity is abounding. Yes. So the whole in the United States, GLBT, whatever, the whole perverted outfit thing. And the things are so, gay marriage, things are so wicked. A generation ago, no one could have even imagined them. Most people, I'm not talking about just believers, I'm about secular people, and all kinds of other things are abounding. And because of the love of many is waxing cold, their love towards other human beings is waxing cold. Again, there's enough food in this world to feed everyone. There's always been a starve, but there's a love shortage. And it's getting worse. And also the love for God, the love of many, and in context, he's talking about many believers here. These things will be offended. Their love for following him will wax cold because all this evil is around. Like, how can either loving God allow all this evil, or they'll be participating in the evil, which we'll get into a little bit more in a moment. So it's us that stay the course to the end are going to be saved. We need to be watching and doing and praying, doing the things he commanded us, praying, watching, protecting our hearts with faith and love, in our minds of the hope of our salvation. But because the beginning of the end is about to end. Because the gospel of the kingdom has been preached as a witness to all ethnic groups. It shall come. There might Someone might argue there's a few little isolated pockets of admin, but they will be. There's an island out in the Indian, no, it's the Arabian Sea. I think it's in the Arabian Sea, off the coast of India, where an Indian missionary guy went the first time anyone's ever went there, and the tribe killed him. And all these sociologists and anthropologists are like, oh no, you shouldn't bring him in. Missionaries shouldn't go in there. They'll ruin their culture. Their culture is barbaric. They're worshiping idols. They're lost without hope in this world. They need their culture ruined. They're probably out there. They're probably within groups that sacrifices their children to these idols. Yeah, that culture needs ruining. Okay, these people need to hear. But if it's not, if this has not been done already, it's very close. In fact, not only has the gospel been preached, the majority of languages in the world, the majority of people in the world, I'll rephrase that, have had the Bible translated in their own language. They can read it themselves. And if I remember correctly, we're over the tipping point. If you go like a Wycliffe translators, I mean, the thing about this is they have to go in there somewhere. Most of these places do not have a written language to start with. They have to learn the language, create a written language, teach them how to read their own language, print the Bible in that language, which our modern technology is a lot easier than it used to be, and then distribute it to these people. And that's really a pattern that started way back when. The majority of the world's written languages were created by missionaries for that point. A very good example is Russian. It was created by a man called Cyril. That's why it's called the Cyril alphabet. And exactly for that reason. English, and it's the same true for mostly most of European languages out, even inside part of the Roman Empire, like Britain and stuff. Missionaries in most of the British Isles, I should say, outside the Roman Empire, Germany, Scandinavia. I mean, it's most of the language in the world. This is how they actually got their written language, the majority. So we are very close. The beginning of the end is almost over. We're to be watching for this. We show we're listening for the trumpet by watching for these signs and being busy doing the master's service, carrying out, bringing the gospel to all the world so we can return. Okay, now we're going to look at Matthew. We're going to continue on in Yeshua, where Yeshua is telling us what to look for. He tells us to watch, but now he's telling us what to watch for. In Matthew 24, 23 through 27. If any man say unto you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there are many false Christs and many false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Therefore they say to you, behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he's in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as lightning comes out of the east and shines in the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Okay, again, notice how fast, like that. Lightning across. All right. So what's this warning here? A sign of the times, telling you that Messiah is somewhere. These false messiahs, these false prophets, as I've been talking about. Okay. And some like this guy in India, whose name I cannot remember right now, is noted for some miracles and signs and wonders. But in the Torah, it said God said he would allow this to test to see whether it would follow him or not. Even false prophets would give prophecies that came to pass. The test is whether we continue to follow. We continue to follow Yahuwah, God, El Shaddai, Hashem, or however you prefer. Okay, and how follow him through how through the Messiah of Israel, Yeshua. It means Messiah, Mashiach. The one he said, Moses, we must obey. That's why they can't elect us. They can't deceive the the very elect, because we know the truth. That's what the test is for. But those who don't know the truth, they're being deceived. That's why they have all these followers. So he's told us before this ever happened. And also something else. Notice, talking about Yeshua being on the earth somewhere. We're not meeting him in the earth, we're meeting him in the air. This is so important to understand. We're not going to all meet him in the desert somewhere or in a secret chamber, say at Petra. We're going to meet him in the air. Those who tell you we're going to meet him in the desert or in some place like that are ignorant at best. At worst, they're false prophets. Because it's going to be suddenly. So in the end, so in the beginning, so we're in the events leading up to the end time. The fact that people are doing these things are a sign of that. But when the end begins, it's going to be like that. Again, it's twinkling of an eye. Suddenly. It'll just be suddenly, and that's it. So, in light of that, Yeshua gives us some more warnings, some more things we need to watch for to keep us listening for the trumpet. Mark 13, 28 through 33. Hear now a parable of the fig tree. Whether branch is yet tender puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So ye in like manner, when you shall see these things come to pass, till it is nigh, even at the doors. Verily I say to this generation shall not pass till all these things be done. Heaven and earth shall pass away, my words shall not pass away. But of that day and that hour knows no man, no, not the angels which are in heaven, nor the Son, but the Father. Take heed, watch and pray, for you know not when the time is. Okay, so notice, we cannot know the time. But we can tell when it's getting close by things we've been looking at. In like manner, you see those things we've been discussing come to pass. We know it's near, even at the doors. We are there. It is near, even at the doors. And notice all this is going to happen in one generation. Now, it'll become very schemes to set up when that generation began, when Israel became a nation. Well, those were getting pretty old, okay? That was 1940, that was what, May 14th, 1947? I mean, okay, so, or 1948. Anyways, that 47, that was a while back, okay? When Israel became a nation, all right? Those were getting pretty old. And some say it's when they regained Jerusalem. Well, those who were born from that point forward are getting a little, and the generation might be those people who started it. I mean, so if that's the case, if it's those cases, this generation is very close. But all this is going to happen in one generation, okay? But we don't know when it is. Not the angels, not even Messiah, Yeshua, Jesus, knows when it is. Only the Father knows. So what are we to do? As he said before, told us over and over again, watch and pray, because we don't know when it is. So we're supposed to be always busy doing his business, always busy preaching the gospel, and always watching and praying. That's how we're going to be listening for the trumpet. Now, we're looking at we're looking at this false ideal that the mark of the beast is on the earth now, or is on the earth now, or anything like that. That is again, and you're going to see that's one of the signs that the trumpet is about to sound. 2 Corinthians 2, 1 through 3. Now we beseech you, brother, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and by our gathering together unto him, that you be not soon shaken in mind or be troubled, neither in spirit nor by word by the letters from us, that the day of Christ is at hand. Well, no man deceive you for any means, for that day shall not come, except there be at first a falling away, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. Okay, I want you to notice there's two different events here. There's the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ to the earth and our gathering together to him, which we saw is in the air. One's in the earth, one's in the air. And which is it referring to here? Well, we're going to see. We're going to see that right here, the gathering he's going to actually discuss first. That day, what day? The day will not come, the day of our gathering together unto him. That this day is at hand. When Paul wrote it, that day was not at hand. And the reason he could say that was, even the day, first there must come a falling away first, where he talks about me, they're going to be offended. This is words literally apostasy, apostasy in Greek, apostos. Anyways, we're going to have this great apostasy. I put the word in Greek. It's going to be significant falling away. There's always some people falling away. And we looked at this before when I talked in my long series. My long 7-week series where I covered every possible verse about predestination and looked at it in context, and not just the context. Often just the context of the passage was sufficient, but the context of the whole word of God, like if it quoted something, what I was talking about, where they quote it, and that kind of thing. And this whole ideal of once saved, always saved. No, you can fall away, and not only can you fall away, there's going to be significant falling away first. Remember, many will be offended. We saw, all right, are going to fall away. The love of many will wax cold. Falling away. And then after that, what? The Son of Man, the man of sin, the Antichrist will be revealed, the son of perdition. So the sequence here is the falling away, then the gathering together, then the man of sin being revealed. And I'll show that's progression by looking at the rest of this in this context here, the rest of this passage here in 2 Thessalonians. We're reading on in 2 Thessalonians 2, 5-8. Remember you not that when I was with you, I told you these things, and now you know what withholds, that he might be revealed in his time. For the mystery of iniquity does already work. Only he who now lets will let, but he that be taken out of the way, but until he be taken out of the way. Then that wicked one be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. Okay, so notice, the wicked one's going to be destroyed when? With the coming. Remember, there's two events, coming of the Lord, coming to the earth, are being gathered to him. Where? In the air, as we've seen. Before that, so what's keeping the Antichrist from appearing? I want you to notice the mystery of iniquity is already at work, which we're going to discuss in a little more detail next. But people sometimes think they see these bad things, this wickedness. They see this thing or that thing and think, well, the Antichrist must be here, this person or that person, or we must be in those times. But no, this word "let" here means prevents, hinders. Would actually be the best translation. He that hinders, but he that now hinders, will hinder until taken out of the way. People say, well, that's the Holy Spirit. No one can be saved out of the Holy Spirit. If you don't have the Holy Spirit, you're none of his. And in the tribulation, lots of saints are saved and beheaded for the testimony of their witness, for their testimony. Lots of people come to salvation during the tribulation. Holy Spirit's not what's taken out of the way. What's hindering the spirit of lawlessness, the mystery of iniquity, is those who are actually doing what Yeshua said. Those who are watching and praying and about the business and preaching the gospel. And we cannot, and the wicked, meaning the Antichrist, he cannot be revealed. We know it's the Antichrist, and the Lord is the one's consumed by the Lord at the brightness of his coming. Is coming the day that those two events is coming to the earth and are being gathered to him in the air. He cannot operate and have free reign with us hindering him. We're out there hindering with our prayers. We're aware of what's going on. We can tell other people. We are hindering him in every kind of way. Iniquity is hindered in all kinds of ways, even today. We're the ones out there like Texas had a heart, like in Texas, they just passed a heartbeat legislation that's going to severely limit abortions to the first 6 weeks. The first 6 weeks, okay, period. Well, that's a hindrance to abortions, to this wickedness. I mean, it should never be. But who was behind that? Texas governor signed it. Well, who elected him? By and large, believers did. We are hindering lawlessness. But so he cannot. And we would continue to hinder lawlessness. So the Antichrist cannot appear until we're out of the way. We're gathered together to Messiah in the air. Now we're not on the earth, and he has free reign. Okay, now we're going to look at 1 John 2, 18 through 22. And we're going to look about this thing about it seems like the Antichrist is here today. And we're going to look at the Antichrist is not here, but that mystery of iniquity is. And we're going to expound upon that here by looking at some passages in John. Starting with this one. Little children, it's the last time, and you've heard of the Antichrist shall come. Even now there are many Antichrists. Hereby we know that is the last time. They went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they'd been of us, they would have no doubt continued with us. But they went out, they may be made manifest, they were not all of us. But you have an unction from the Holy One, and you know all things. I have not written you because you know not the truth, but because you know it, and there is no lie in the truth. Who is a liar? That he denies Jesus the Christ. He is Antichrist, and denies the Father and the Son. So, I want you to, so there are many Antichrists. There have been many types of just like there's types of Messiah all through the Bible, like Joseph and Moses and David, and Samson, and so on and so forth. There's also types of the Antichrist, like Goliath and the Pharaoh in the story of the Exodus, and the Pharaoh actually the other Pharaoh before that, the one that killed the knew not Joseph and killed the Hebrew children, and then and the Assyrian and the Assyrian that conquered Israel, and so on and so forth, and Antiochus Epiphanes, who was spoken of ahead of time in Daniel's chapter 11, who made an image of himself to be worshipped. These are all pictures. These are all types of the Antichrist, and they are an Antichrist of sorts. But there's many Antichrists. Hitler was an Antichrist. But I want you to notice an aspect about these Antichrists. Often they come out of the believers. They were in our congregations, but they weren't. But like we're to be in the world, not part of it. They were in our congregation, but they weren't part of us. And they left and started teaching false doctrine and everything. And there's even those who deny that who've been in our congregations, who've gone out, they deny that Yeshua is Mashiach. They say that he is not the Christ, particularly among those who meet on the Sabbath in the so-called Messianic movement. There's a number of them who have done this. They even deny that Messiah is Christ. They are Antichrist. Because to deny Messiah, if you deny the Son, you deny the Father. But we have an unction, some of the baptism of the Holy Spirit, not the Holy Spirit there. The anointing, we have an anointing from the Holy One, from Messiah, the Holy Spirit, so that we can know the difference. Okay, now we're looking at another aspect about this Antichrist, about this mystery of iniquity that's at work, because it's a sign that the end is about to begin. 1 John 4, 1 through 14. Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits, for they are of God. Because many false prophets are gone out into the world. Hereby know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God. And every spirit that confesses not that Jesus is come in the flesh is not of God. This is the spirit of Antichrist, which should come and is already now in the world. You are of God, little children, overcome them, because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. So we got two sets of spirits here. The Spirit of God, the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, and these other spirit and many other spirits. These false prophets operate by these other spirits. But how do we know who's who? Well, because the spirit of Antichrist says that will not say that Jesus Christ come in the flesh. It will not say that Messiah has come to this earth. Because that was Messiah who was born, dead, and resurrected. They're doomed. Okay. They're liars. They're spirits of lies. So they're not going to acknowledge the truth of this. And this is the spirit of Antichrist. And because they deny that Yeshua has come in the flesh. I mean, there's a group. Oh gosh, I can't remember what they call themselves. They fancy themselves historians and whatever. They talk the historical. They call themselves the Jesus. I can't remember what their group name was. But anyways, their whole thing was to prove that, I mean, that Jesus wasn't really resurrected. Some even went so far as he never even existed. You know, despite Roman records by total pagan idol worshippers saying that not only they died, they was resurrected. They stood before Pilate. Okay. Now, never mind the fact there's only 10 records from the ancient world of Julius Caesar's life at all, and the oldest one's 1,000 years after the fact, so it's a copy at best, versus 13,000 that mention the resurrection that have been found. Even some a few years ago in Israel that were within 2 or 3 years of the resurrection. They actually had dates on them. They didn't just have carbon date. I mean, they had dates on them like they're like a court, like a court date, official stamps. Okay, so never mind that. They're saying he's not come to the flesh because so now the spirit of Antichrist is in the world. That's the spirit of Antichrist, the denial of the Messiah. Because if he isn't here, if he didn't come, you don't have to obey him, and lawlessness can proceed. Now we're gonna look some more what Yochanan John has to say in the second chapter. In 2 John, the only chapter is chapter 1, verses 6 through 9. For this is love, that we walk after his commandments. This is the commandment you have heard from the beginning, you should walk in it. Many deceivers enter in the world who confess not that Jesus Christ has come into the flesh. This is a deceiver and an antichrist. Look to yourselves, that we lose not those things which we have wrought, but we receive a full reward. Whosoever transgresses and abides not in the doctrine of Christ has not God. He that abides in the doctrine of Christ has both the Father and the Son. So what is his doctrine? That we walk after his commandments. And if you've been following my lessons, I show how that Paul. Well, first of all, the commands the apostles gave were the commandments of Messiah, but also that they did not in any way contradict Torah, the law that God gave Moses. And notice it's the law that God gave Moses. It wasn't Moses' ideal; it was God's. He just dictated to Moses, okay, these commandments. And recently I've talked about biblical Christianity and how all these things fit together. And in particular, before that, I explained in the kingdom within the kingdom that there are weightier matters of the law, as Messiah said, that everyone who's going to, if you don't keep those, you're not getting in the kingdom. It's flat says it. And there's also lesser matters which you don't keep to get in the kingdom. But if you want to be in the kingdom within the kingdom, if you want to be in the city in the eternal state, not out there on the earth, on the new earth, but in the new Jerusalem, you have to keep those. Okay, if you want to be in Israel when he reigns, you're going to reign with him. You're going to reign with him in Israel or or if you're a believer, or you're gonna help reign over the rest of the world. You're gonna be one of those two. If you want to be the ones that's in Israel, you have to keep these lesser commandments. These are things like eating and keeping the Sabbath and all those things aren't listed as the things that'll keep you out of the kingdom. They'll keep you out of the kingdom completely. So these are the commandments. But the Antichrist, but an Antichrist doesn't confess Jesus come in the flesh. And again, there's even the people who have gotten involved, rabbis and whatever, and deny Jesus come in the flesh, and they don't say we need to walk after his commandments. And the doctrine of the Antichrist spirit is when it's against keeping the commandments, including the commandment to go into all the world and preach the gospel. And that is an area where so many people who meet on the Sabbath are so lacking. I've had Mormons show up, witnesses show up at my door, Baptists, Methodists, people from charismatic churches. I've had everyone show up at my door, knock on me over the years here, trying to tell me about Yeshua, except those who meet on the Sabbath. Not one time have I had one. Shame on you for not warning the sinner that they could be perishing and showing them the way of salvation. Because that is one of the commandments of Messiah. And those who tell you don't need to do that, they are a deceiver and an antichrist. So now we've looked at what we're supposed to be watching for. We watch and pray, and how we need to continue. And this is how and because we're sober-minded, we are listening for the trumpet. We're expecting it because we are doing these things. And we're going to look at some last things about what to look for that really should guarantee us and drive home that we are near the beginning of the end. We're in the days leading up to the last days. When John said we're in the last day, he meant the days leading up to the last day. And we're there again. And how do we know when these things come? How do we know we're this? Well, let's look at this right here in 2 Timothy 3:1-5. Know you this. Know also. In the last days, perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of themselves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. So, look at this. I want you to notice this word translated perilous is literally demonic times. Times where the power of darkness has been growing and it's more and more in control. And we've looked at why some of those things were. But what is the result of that? How do we know it's demonic times? Because of the way people behave. Now, all these things have happened, of course, sometime in history. But like let's say during World War II, if you were in Germany, you may have thought that was applying right then. But you got to consider the planet as a whole. By and large, people in the United States were the opposite of these things back then. But now, even the best of nations, this pretty much applies to. Because we're in the last days, the days leading up, the days before the end begins, okay? And how do we know? Because men are lovers of themselves. Look out for number one. Taking care of myself. I'm getting mine. Never mind if other people starve, I'm getting mine. Cover this. I don't just want mine, I want what's theirs too. I don't just want a wife, I want my neighbor's wife. I just don't want a car. I just don't boasting, bragging, want bragging rights, proud. won't listen to sound doctrine. Won't humble themselves before God. Because of that, they're blasphemers. There's so much blasphemy everywhere. I mean, a young man wanted me to listen to one of his favorite artists. So tell my thoughts. I gave a short listen. There was no art in it. It was just a bunch of cuss words all strung together. Admittedly, I've heard work. It sounded like I was listening to somebody that's drunk, to be honest. But unfortunately, this kind of artist is not the exception. Blasphemers everywhere. It is blasphemy to use the name Jesus, Yeshua. But in America, people say Jesus, and they use it as a cuss word or something like that. It's misusing his holy name. Misusing the name of the Father. Even if you don't know his name and use the word God. Using it as a cuss word or part of an expression. Using as that's another study I'll go into another day. I'll go into another day about what it means, what it truly means to not the blasphemy. That literally it says in Hebrew not to use this word casually. Not using expressions like "oh my God" casually. The expression, if I remember right, occurs a few times in the Bible, but it's not being used casually. It's being in a literal sense. Blasphemy is everywhere. I will not, if a movie takes the name of God in vain, I turn it off and I'll never watch it again. If a TV show does, for one time in one episode, I don't care how long I've been watching it, I will turn it off and never watch it again. It makes me burn with anger because I am zealous for the name of my God. Even when you're using words like God, which is just for the sake of English speakers. But this world is full of it. And the content I can watch keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. Disobedience to parents. Well, that's a no-brainer. There's always been some disobedience to some degree, but not like today. Unthankful, the entire entitlement mentality that's so prevalent. I'm entitled to this. I didn't work for it. I didn't earn it. But hey, I was born. And you need to give it to me because I'm entitled to it. And so being thankful that someone's giving you something you did not work for and you did not earn. It's not, a lot of these people don't, the new term is not equal opportunity, which I'm all for, because that is biblical. The Bible actually teaches that, which we've looked at many times. That it doesn't say, if you're a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and do these things, I'll do such for you. It says, if you do these things. And it doesn't say if you're not a descendant of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and you don't keep my word, these bad things. It says either way, these bad things. God's not a respecter of persons, should we be? But we're talking about now it's equity, guaranteed equal results, not equal opportunity, results, regardless of how lazy I was. We talked about that in the curse of laziness. Why it's a curse? Because they don't want the blessing of work. And when you help them, they're unthankful. Unholy. Of course, if they're blaspheming the name, of course they're unholy. And it goes beyond that. You see them with all these demonic symbols on purpose, not ignorance. Like when I talk about the darkness of Christmas, where you have a Christmas tree up, they don't really understand how it comes from Greco-Roman, the same Greco-Roman religion that brought us, that celebrated the perverted alphabet. Okay, that's brought about that perversion of the ideal of diversity and inclusion. But we're talking about all this kind of we're talking about people who do this and they're just unholy. They want to do what's unholy and they brag about it without natural affection. This is talking about the perverted alphabet. People are sexually involved with someone that's not of the opposite sex. Now, fornication generally and adultery, fornication can't would include all this, but it also includes wrong relationships between people of the opposite sex. But that's not something that's unnatural affection, without natural affection. And also, perhaps natural affection toward their parents, okay? Truce breakers, and we've all seen it. There's two parties at war. They make a truce, and as soon as one of them starts pulling out where they think, and the one that made the truce them thinks that, hey, now the upper hand, they launch an attack or whatever. They don't keep their truce. And it's not just true in war; it's true in homes. And homes people will say truce, and they agree. Okay, we're not going to fight over this anymore, or whatever, or here's why we're going to do this. And as soon as one of them gets in a position that's perceived to be weaker, the other one tries to get their way. No, you made an agreement. But it happens all the time. It's caused so much marital problems, which is why I've had which I've done so many lessons about marriage. Okay. And the root of it often is truce breakers. They had a fight, they made an agreement, but as soon as they think they got the upper hand, they break their agreement. False accusers. Posting things on the internet that you know, that on Facebook or wherever, that you do not know for sure 100% is true, is spreading false, making false accusations. It's bearing false witness. And it's everywhere, particularly on a place like Facebook. I mean, when it's passed, now we can look and go, well, that's ridiculous. Was President Obama wasn't going to leave office, and he was going to use the government to kill all the Christians, and he had plastic coffins built. And I heard all this stuff, and these people swore, "Oh, I got inside information. I know this." No, it was a lie. It was false. It was a false accusation against President Obama, who's not my favorite president. I'm not a big fan here, okay? But nonetheless, it's a false accusation against him. It was speaking evil of the ruler of our people, which we're told not to do. And now today, the false accusation is about other things, but particularly the big one is about this virus. I mean, about the COVID-19 vaccine. Yes, it's not safe. There's no doubt about that. Yes. There are people that, just a few weeks back, I was looking to go back to where I grew up in to go look at something, and and by chance I came across a memorial to a woman who got the shot and it killed her. Okay, that's a fact. The shots are not, these are things I can verify myself as true. But the shot didn't kill everyone. And more people, and the fact is, it's not the mark of the beast, as we've already discussed. It cannot be, because the Antichrist cannot arise until we meet in the air and we're still here. Stop making these false accusations. You are bearing false witness if you post something on the internet, on Facebook, or send emails, or whatever the case is, or otherwise, or just repeat it at home, that you do not know it's a fact. And most things you cannot verify. So stick to speaking the word of God, because you know it's true. Incontinent. That just means that means they're discontent. And I talked about the danger of discontentment and how we can learn to be content. But there's so much discontentment. The thing that causes people to break their truce in marriage is their discontentment. And why? They're rebelling against God's commandments. There are people who call themselves believers here. If you have food and raiment, which means covering, which includes food, clothing, and shelter. You have food, clothing, and shelter. Be content. That's the commandment of Yeshua to the apostles. And yet, discontent. I need a better car. My neighbor's got that. I need that. I need one too. I just don't want what they have. I want something better than what they have. Discontentment. It comes from coveting often. Fierce. Yes, there's no doubt. We're not talking about, yes, soldiers go to war and have to fight. But we're talking about this glorification of fighting. I mean, I proudly served in the U.S. Air Force, but I long for the day when the U.S. Air Force is not needed. Our whole idea was peace through strength, which worked. When you're the toughest guy on the block, nobody wants to fight with you. But only Messiah can bring us real peace. It's not talking about that here. It's talking about people's obsession with violence. How they're continually going around video games and they're just fierce. They just and fight. When there's a fight going on, you see them in the crowd yelling, fight, instead of being peacemakers and trying to get people to not fight each other like Moses did. And those who do good, others despise them. If you're at workplace, I talk to employers and employees, and you're doing what the Bible says, be a good employee, and you're not being lazy, and you work with 4 guys who are, they'll despise you for it. They say you're trying to make them look bad. No, you're doing what's good. The light is shining the darkness that's in them. They made themselves look bad. All you did is expose it. Now the boss doesn't even compare them to. Oh, really? Really? Someone can't. People. That guy's not even breaking a sweat. He's producing 20 widgets a day, and my other guys are producing 5. Now the boss starts wondering about them, right? So they despise them. What? For doing good, for doing what's right. Traitors. This isn't just about traitors in the country. We all know these people to their country. We know these people, like in WikiLeaks. A lot of those people are just traitors. That's why they're doing it. And a lot of times, sometimes what they leak isn't even true. Back to the false accusers. But sometimes it is. But they're traitors. But it's not just about traitors there. We're talking about traitors in the home. In the Bible, there is no such thing as a sin-free divorce. Here's what it says: if a man divorces his wife for any reason or her sexual immorality, he dealt deceitfully with her. He dealt treacherously with her. He was a traitor to his family, his children. He was a traitor to them. If a woman leaves her husband, she dealt treacherously with him, is what the word says. She is a traitor against her own children, against her own family. What's the divorce rate in this country, in this world? It will get divorced so casually because being traitor is so natural in these days. It's a sign we're in those demonic times that tells the last days, the days that lead to the beginning of right before the beginning of the end. Heavy and high-minded, thinking a lot of themselves. Look at me, I'm so awesome. They think worship songs should be directed at them. Lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. Now, this is the root cause right here. Because some of these people I'm talking about call themselves believers. But when you get right down to it, they're lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. To them, Christians have 4 other words. Like fast, pray, read. These are 4 other words of these people. Love. What do you mean I gotta love my neighbor? Oh, you don't mean just tell them just some little heart things on you mean sacrificial love like Messiah had. These are 4 little words of so many believers. Why? Because those things require sacrifice, and they denying yourself pleasure and following Messiah, even just avoiding sin. Moses did not consider the pleasures of sin, but considered the treasures of Messiah much higher. He rejected the pleasures of sin. Sin has pleasure. If you love pleasure more than God, you're going to do those things. And here's the root reason. Because even though they're in congregations, they have this form of godliness where they meet on the Sabbath or Sunday or some other day. Often the ones been teaching them have been denying the power of it. They deny the power of godliness to transform your life. They deny the power of the gospel to change you on the inside so you don't keep doing these things. They will say things like, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Once a sinner, always a sinner. Instead of denying the power of the gospel to change you from the inside so you don't want to do those things anymore, so you, as a result, you don't do them. And there's no reason for you to. Once saved, always saved. You can think, I mean, the Bible says, if you tell them they can do these things and enter the kingdom of heaven, you're a deceiver. And what are we supposed to do about these deceivers? And these people act this way in general, even in their own congregation. Turn away from such. The people in charge of our congregation should be putting them out. And it doesn't mean don't give them an opportunity. It means follow the way Yeshua said, which is explaining what it said Moses. It said Moses about rebuking your brother. You shall no wise hate him. When you see him sin, you shall rebuke him. But we're talking about those people who've gone through all this, and like the brother in Corinth, in 1st and 2nd Corinthians, who was sexually involved with his stepmother, okay, they're be put out. But it's also talking about us, not the people who teach these things. Such teachers, turn away from such. And it gets harder and harder to find people who actually teach God's word, which is part of what led me to start my own congregation. Okay, so this whole mess, and it's easy to see that's apostasy going on. It's improving, which is a sign. Now, here's something else. We're going to look at another thing we should be watching for to help us keep. So we're listening for the trumpet by watching, praying, doing, and continuing on to follow the commandments of Yeshua. And another one is covered right here in James 5:1-6. Go to now, you rich men, weep and howl, for your misery shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted. Your garments are moth-eaten. Your silver and gold is cankered. The rest of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh that were fire. You have heaped up treasure together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers have reaped down your fields, which you've kept back by fraud, cries. And the cries of them which have reaped are entered the Lord of Sabaoth. You have lived in pleasure of the earth and been wanton. You have nourished your hearts as in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and killed the just, and he does not resist you. Okay, so I want you to notice this key phrase here. You have heaped together treasures for the last days. This is talking about the last days, about the accumulation of the wealth, of the accumulation of most of the wealth in the hands of a few people. Okay, and even in America, economists have noticed is like where I grew up. When I grew up in Northwest Arkansas, we had a problem of you had very few people like people who ran Walmart and JV Hunt and Tyson's Chicken. You had a few super rich people, a bunch of really poor people, and practically no middle class. Okay, and economists have noticed that's what's happening as a trend in the U.S. overall, and it goes up and down depending on who's in charge, who's making decisions about that affect the economy and things like that, and things like COVID, which is the judgment of the Father, the judgment of God, a warning judgment. We're not in the end; it's not the end, but it's a warning. And those of us who are watching see this, that the end is about to begin. Okay. Well, how do they operate? They keep back wages by fraud. And one example is a coffee company I used to buy coffee from. This is why I felt led to go read up on them one day and look. I was debating between two coffees, and I bought them much more expensive coffee that's fair trade. Because basically what they do is they pay the coffee makers just enough to barely get by, so they continue to serve them as slaves to make coffee, to grow coffee beans. I'm sorry. Okay. And they use poor people to oppress poor people. Because of that, they're buying the cheapest beans there are. The people at the plantation with the higher quality beans often won't work with them, but their beans their coffee's passable. Okay. And it's very, it's perhaps one of the highest selling. It's perhaps the highest selling brand of coffee in the U.S., at least in grocery stores or whatever. It's a long way. It was around long before Starbucks or whatever. So who do they sell it to? Poor people who also don't have much money. Why? Because they also don't have, because they also aren't being paid what's fair, which I talked about employers and employees. But how they operate, they do it often by keeping back by fraud. They make some agreement, and they'll put some ridiculous clause in there. In this agreement, that almost guarantee, pretty much guarantee, it guarantees eventually there's going to be failure, and then they have a severe penalty for the failure. Instead of just paying them fairly for what they've done in reaping their fields, they cheat them out of money. And it's not just one company; it's common, it's everywhere. Okay, so that's how they heap this. That's how they heap these treasures together for the last days, for the days of coming, and the days of the Antichrist. But the heaping is going on right now, so we can see it. And you'll notice these people, they live in pleasure in the earth and then wanton. I mean, lifestyles of the rich and famous. They have like the Playboy mansion or whatever, right? Huh? They're not, and they're making this, and they're fattening themselves, so to speak. We said it, they're living large. People used to a popular expression. But they don't know, they're preparing themselves to be slaughtered, okay, when Messiah comes, all right? They don't know in the last days are not going to go well for them. And they've also condemned and killed the just. And in these cases, sometimes you get like a case like someone who wants to organize the workers, or maybe does something and says, hey, you agreed this. Well, they'll make false accusations like I talked about before and get them condemned and sometimes killed. And sometimes they'll even do things like set their own crops on fire and accuse these people falsely to get them thrown in the jail. Or saying, hey, they were shooting, they put a gun in their hands after the fact, say, hey, they were firing at us, and kill them. Okay. So those who are doing what's right, they just sometimes they just kill. And again, I'm not spreading rumors here. I'm talking very generically, but it's definitely occurring because we are in the days that precede the end. Okay, now these kind of things have always happened, but not our big clue that we can see, that we can verify. It's a little hard to verify who's condemning who and who's killing who. Okay, that's sometimes a little harder to verify until they get caught. What we can see that's not hard to see is the accumulation of the wealth, most of the wealth in the hands of a few people. That's going on and on. Large corporations buy other large corporations, and so on and so forth. So, a sign that the last days are upon us, the beginning of the end. We need to be watching for that. And those of us who are watching and praying and are doing what the Lord says are the ones who are going to hear the trumpet. And this is how we're listening for the trumpet, by paying attention to what's going on. Understand what's really going on. Now, 2 Peter 3, 1-4. The second epistle, beloved, I now write unto you, in both which I stir up your pure minds by way of remembrance, that you may be mindful of the words which are spoken before of the holy prophets, of the commandment of us, the apostles of the Lord and Savior. Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking their own lust, saying, where's the promises coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. Okay, now what are they scoffing at? They're scoffing at the word of God. The word spoken before the holy prophets. That's the writings of the prophets, the Tanakh, the Old Testament, the commandments of the apostles of the Lord Jesus Christ. Where those commandments found in the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament. Okay. So they're scoffing at the word of God. And this has certainly been on the increase as we've gone along. And when do these scoffers, and why do they do it? So they can walk after their own lust. I have a friend who was going on this, he was actually a Hindu, and he started going to atheism and stuff, and I started showing him how evolution in these things are, but evolution particularly is a mathematical and scientific impossibility. You can believe in math and science, you can believe in evolution, but you can't believe in both. Okay, it's just that simple. It does not stand up to close scrutiny. And he understood what I said. He understood that eventually turned away from the atheism. And here's what he told me about atheism. He said, after he turned away, he said, I realized atheism is just a religion, lets people do whatever the hell they want. That was his exact words. So, I don't normally quite talk like that, but it's not, that's the quote from him. And that is it. That means walking after their own lust. And watch these scoffers who deny the word of God and support these things like atheism, how they say it works. Everything continues as it was from the beginning. But that basically the Grand Canyon was carved, originally they said the Grand Canyon was carved when I was a kid, by the Colorado River meandering through there over millions of years and billions of years and cut to the sandstone. They're like, well, no, they said, wait, later. Oh, we discovered there's a big inland ocean and it drained through there and carved all this out. So now they've got a catastrophic event. Well, before they were denying there weren't any catastrophic events. And all their arguments on timelines are based on the idea of no catastrophic events. Well, here's the evidence. And you can go, there's a tour in the Grand Canyon. You can see for yourself. There's a guy who takes people on tours that shows the Grand Canyon. Evidence the Grand Canyon was carved in the flood of Noah, okay? There's evidence right there. You can see, touch, and feel for yourself. You can see and touch yourself, okay? Now, because of catastrophic events, but they ignore catastrophic events despite the increase of these things in our current day. That somehow before this, everything just moved along smoothly. It took millions and millions of years because nothing big ever happened. Suddenly, like Mount St. Helens, if it had blown up, say 500 years ago, before the Europeans showed up, they'd be out there looking at the waterfall that's created when Mount St. Helens fell up. A 100-foot waterfall was formed in minutes because the lava under the river that came out of the volcano that had been underground of the river was no longer there supporting the weight, and it crushed and formed a 100-foot waterfall in minutes. They'd been like, oh, they wrote it down over millions of years because they're scoffers. And the whole reason they do this is because they want to do what they want to do. They want to walk after their own desires. And because of that, they are not looking for Messiah. They scoff at the idea of him even coming. They say it's ridiculous. And there's even people in congregations in the, I'm using this term very loosely, Protestant churches, not none of the false church of Rome here. I know about Protestant churches. I'm talking about anyone that's not false. Anyone calls those followers of Messiah, it's not part of the false church of Rome, okay, directly, all right? But perhaps inherits things from, but not really part of it, okay? The number one teaching in theology schools today in America is about these things is called amillennialism. No millennium, literally. Because a lot of these people are atheists. They try to somehow they don't want to quite let go of the Bible completely, but they somehow try to make it all work together. And they don't believe in it. They don't believe that Messiah actually comes back to the earth, which we're going to look at next week, or not next week, our next lesson. It really won't be a week. Our next lesson. They don't, or a couple of lessons down the road. We're going to look at the Antichrist next lesson, the time of the Antichrist. Then we're going to look at the Messiah's coming back, okay? The redemption of Israel. So, these are signs that for those of us who are awake, who are not drunk, we can see that it's not just the signs of the times, but we are in the times of the signs. That the beginning of the end is at the door knocking. The doors are about to be opened, And we need to be listening for the trumpet by being about the master's business until it sounds. And we meet him in the air. That's all I got for now. Till next time, shalom.